Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Aging with Attitude. My name is Phil Koch, here as host. This show services the greater Charlotte metro market and surrounding areas. Tonight we have a repeat guest, Elaine Marshall, who is the Secretary of State here in North Carolina. Welcome. It's a great honor.
Hi, Phil. Thanks to be here. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Glad that you took the drive down and were able to join us again. It's always good to have you on the show. Well, today we're going to be talking, if I'm not mistaken, about advanced healthcare directives.
Right. When people think about the Secretary of State's office, and we're business infrastructure, it's a place where people form businesses every day and what have you, stockbrokers are registered there, they don't necessarily think of advanced healthcare directives. But we manage some vast databases. And what we are doing with the Advanced Healthcare Directory is simply a database management function that is offered for the people of North Carolina. I know we're going to go into great detail here on the type of documents that can be filed there, but I encourage people to go to sosnc.com and find out what we do. This is a small part of what we do there, but having accessible, secure databases is a part of our DNA. And so the General Assembly asked me to house this, and it's a very good function for the people of North Carolina. Sadly, not enough folks know it's available, so that's why I'm here today to talk about it.
That's great to have it. So tell me, if you're healthy, I mean, what should they do right now if they've not done anything online through the state? Let
me tell you that anyone over the age of 18, where they can legally make a decision, should think about some things. And it's very hard for young people to, but yet it's important. We are finding that a lot of college-age kids are very much wanting to be organ donors, and so that conversation is taking place there in their collective socially conscious activities. But anybody from 18 on up to whatever age should be interested in having a living will. They may be interested in being an organ donor. And sometimes these conversations are very, very difficult for people to have. But they're very, very important for people and families. And it's just very, very important that people think through, how do they want to be taken care of? What do they want to be done with them if they're not of a good voice and clear mind to be able to instruct somebody. That's why they're called advanced directives. They're advanced decisions that are planned when somebody has a clear head and not under great stress. And let's face it, when something does happen like that, the person themselves are probably not the most stressed out. It's their family members that become incredibly stressed out. I've had people characterize this as the gift of love. It's a conversation of love that folks ought to have with their family about what to do in these various types of need. We register 4 documents. The first one is what's normally called the living will. The second one is the donor, organ donor. The third one is the appointment of a health care power of attorney. And the fourth one is a mental health power of attorney. I will tell you that the living will and the healthcare power of attorney are the more popular of the 4 that we deposit and hold at the Secretary of State's office. But the other 2 are available. Let me tell you, if people will go to the website, they will see a heart being held up by 2 hands.
Okay.
That's the part of the website you want to click on.
Okay.
The forms for all 4 of these documents are there for free. These are the forms that the North Carolina statutes have determined are the right language. Now, sometimes people get something from somewhere else, or they come from another state and say, I had this done in Arizona. Is it good here? There's a reason why each different state does their own thing. It complies with their laws as fully as it possibly can. To answer the question about an out-of-state document, it may comply, but I always tell people to go really talk to a lawyer or compare your document to the North Carolina form, and it might. Also, you want to compare how it was signed, because that's important on the living will in particular. But folks, folks, they're there for them to look at, no charge, print them off, you've got them for no charge. We cannot give legal advice at the office, as you can imagine. We can give advice and do have probably 25 or 30 frequently asked questions, FAQs, about these documents, and their instruction sheets with each of them. The reason why I stress instruction sheets is that on the living will in particular, obviously the purpose of the living will is to keep you comfortable, but then at some point to withdraw life support if that's your choice. It is required by North Carolina law that the people that witness, two layperson witnesses and a notary, that they not be interested in whether or not you live or die. These have to be disinterested people so that they would not benefit from the fact that you had passed or you'd passed on a certain date or what have you. So that's part of the instructions for this. It has to be disinterested individuals who are witnessing and notarizing.
What do you mean
the
disinterested
signature.
people that are not affiliated with?
Not family members, or not
tied to your money.
Right.
Okay.
Right, somehow interested in your money.
Right.
Exactly,
Right.
or property, yeah. Yep, that's what it amounts to.
Well, I didn't know that, wow. Huh.
The FAQs, the frequently asked questions, are up there, and it goes through all that stuff. Plus, when you print off the form, the instruction sheet about how to fill it out comes with it.
And I know you mentioned this already, that you don't have lawyers sitting there here to answer questions. Right. But if Mrs. Smith moves from Michigan and comes down here and has most of this already prepared, is now moved into the state, because we get these questions a lot within the industry.
Sure.
What should we do? Would you recommend that they go to an attorney first, or they go to the online, fill out those forms and anything that's needed?
Yeah, that's what I would do first,
yeah, okay.
because it is possible that you could do it without the necessity of a lawyer. If the Michigan form is really identical or substantially identical, then you could go ahead and deposit the Michigan form with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep.
What about things like power of attorney, which is more legal and financial? Is that right?
There are two types of powers of attorney.
Yeah.
One is of the person, and one is of the person's affairs, of the estate.
Right.
The more common is the power of attorney that is of the person's affairs, and those are deposited at the Register of Deeds office in the county where you're doing business. So it may be that you have to deposit it or register it at more places than one. When I was practicing law in an active practice, it was not required nearly as much. Folks would operate on one that was not recorded. You could take it to a bank and you could get into somebody's account or open a safe deposit box or what have you. But in the last 10 or so years, I'm guessing, banks are requiring more due diligence. They want to know that it's been registered before they will do anything. They want to make sure that it has been fully taken care of and recorded. That is not a hard, fast rule, but if I had one and I was going to operate under it, I would record it to make sure that in a time of emergency, it's there.
I think that's important to mention, because a lot of the families that need care, whether it's through families or other types, a daughter will say, well, I'm on my mom's checkbook, right? But does that automatically and legally allow them, this is a question, to write checks if they don't have a power of attorney, but they're on the checkbook? Are they allowed to do that?
If they are on the signature card at the bank, that gives them the right to sign checks rather than the mother sign checks.
But they must be on the signature card.
Right, right. It's a banking issue, and the banks are the ones that are going to be overseeing that matter.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, tell us more about what things you recommend with regards to like organ donation. Tell us how that works.
Well, the organ donation, probably everybody knows of somebody that's on an organ waiting list.
Right.
Lungs and kidneys and livers and things like that. And there are people who are very willing to have their earthly remains be used for the benefit of someone else. This is where young people in particular come in. I'm sorry to say that young people tend to be involved in more automobile accidents and engage in more high-risk activities. That's a part of being youthful. Yeah. These are donors that can be very, very helpful to many, many people if they do organ donation. And people need to realize that even older folks people have said, well, my body parts are all worn out. People have tissue. In the case of people that have been severely burned, tissue is needed.
Right.
Corneas are needed. Blood vessels are needed. So, you know, there are a lot of good functions and purposes that can
save somebody's life.
Yeah. I actually went to an event down in Greenville where it was a meeting of donors and recipient families, and it was just a most wonderful, heartwarming activity. And they had a Christmas tree there with the pictures of donors on. And I was looking around, and there was a lady who was a former law client of mine. Wow. And she had passed away at age 85. And I couldn't believe, it was Miss Pauline, a picture there. And I told the folks, I said, I'm just overwhelmed. Wow. Because here she was, you know, able to make somebody else's life better. Yeah. At her age. So
literally keep them alive.
Yep. In some cases, yeah. Wow. Now, I will tell you that one of the big beauties of this database we have is that every hospital has internet access. Mm-hmm. Hospitals know that we're available 24/7, just like the world. And people give their intents, their documents to their doctor, or they leave them with their lawyer, or they put them in a safe deposit box. I'm telling you, all of those are not very good ideas at a time of stress. Yeah. People have got to remember where it is. Let's say it's over the weekend. You're not going to get into that bank box until the next day that they open up in the morning. You got to have the key to the bank box. Yep. So our databases are there available 24/7. Now, can I go ahead and explain what happens when you deposit something with us? Yeah. Now, it does take a $10 deposit fee. The General Assembly set this up to be self-supporting, yep. So there hasn't been another source of money for this.
$10 per document?
Per document,
okay.
Right.
Okay.
And when you send it into us, then we go ahead and process it, and we send back something to you that, again, has the heart being held up. And there's actually a card here, like a little credit card size thing, that you peel off. We give you a file number, and we give you a password.
Right.
Now, this password is one of the few, maybe the only one, that you want a lot of people to know about.
Right.
I tell people, well, first off, I carry mine.
Can I just hold this up?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Can we get this? Yeah? Is that okay? All right.
I carry mine where I carry my credit cards and my medical cards.
Wow.
And I have it with me. It's a little frayed on the top because it's been around for a while. But if you have this in your possession, or you photocopy it and put it up on your refrigerator, yeah, and let all of the people in your church group or your family group or your bridge group, somebody's going to remember that it's up there. And with those two, file number and the password number, it can be right there in the hospital room.
Right.
Now, people that do hospital clinical pastoral work tell me that this is a function that saves families. Yeah. Because without it, the children are discontinuing life support. The medical people have said, tell us what you want to do. And one child will say, I know mama or daddy didn't want to be kept that way. The other child will say, I never heard that. I never heard that. Having these documents about what you want done and then having the pretty quick access to it is very, very important. It gives comfort to everybody at that time of decision when you, 5 years earlier, clear-headed, before an illness, before an accident, said, this is what I want done. So you actually have the opportunity to speak right there in the hospital room when you don't necessarily have voice and ability.
If I may, I think that is a critical point. Okay, not just the information that's available on your site, how it can aid the individual and relieve their stress, having to get it organized prior to, God forbid, something happening.
Right.
But the critical aspect of it helping the family. Because if they're unconscious or worse, you know, they're not going to think much about it. A lot of people out there that are viewers that are seniors might think, oh, I don't want to think about me passing one day. I don't want, they try to block it out of their mind like we all do.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is it's the daughters and the sons,
it's
the
a
spouses.
Gift of love
it's a gift
to
of
them.
love to them to be able to have it right there, to be able to assist and aid when and if that day comes. Yes.
You know, and people sometimes they want their doctors to have them. That's fine. But at this critical moment, you're going to be under the care of a doctor you or your family have never heard of. You know, you might be traveling to California to have a wonderful trip, and there's an automobile accident.
Right.
You're going to be in a state that you are not familiar. But people, if they call up your family and say something has happened, and the family thinks, I need to go get that number off the refrigerator, we might need this, it just makes life at a very difficult time at least a little bit more manageable.
Right. So that has the name, the website, how to retrieve the information.
The file number and the actual password on there, yes.
Wow, it's fantastic.
Does. Yep,
yeah.
It does.
And when was this all established?
Oh golly, I'm not sure. Our database has probably begun in the early 2000s.
Okay.
We were the first state to do this. Only a few do it.
First state in the United States?
Yes. Now
we're first in flight, now we're first in this.
Yes. Now Arizona has tried to claim that they were the first because they were the first where the state actually doesn't charge a fee.
Right.
But we were the first, really, to do it.
That's fantastic.
It is. It is. It is. Yep.
Well, great. Well, so there's organ donation, there's the healthcare power of attorney.
It is the living will.
The living will, and
then the mental health power of attorney.
Okay.
There apparently was thought that of a need to separate the mental health power of attorney from the healthcare power of attorney. Some people only wanted a mental health one, not a full person power of attorney. So that is available also. Okay. It is not quite as utilized as some of the others, but it's probably because a lot of people don't know we have it. But there is a mental health power of attorney. But
and just curious, but you say a regular, I know there's two different types, power of attorney. You would go down to your particular counties.
Right. The financial power of attorney, kind of, if you want to call it that, will have no effect on this.
Right.
Now, if you have a guardian of the estate that's appointed by the court, that is where somebody can make these health care issues, but nothing more for a person. Sometimes we have caregivers that have those but don't have the power of the pocketbook with folks. That happens more in the court-appointed setting where the court has a little hearing and they appoint somebody. Right. But the healthcare power of attorney does give you clear, because it asks certain questions about how you want to be taken care of, and it allows you to put your own wishes in there on that.
Now, I've heard of a term called the most form. Is that affiliated with the state?
The most form is something that is used by healthcare providers when they transfer somebody from one facility to another, and it is only good for 1 year. Okay. I'm trying to think what most stands for, and I really have a cheat sheet here.
Whereas these
on it
that we're filing through this sonc.com,
right,
is valid for how long? Is it something you have to re-register every couple years?
No, it's valid until you either want to terminate it or pass away.
Oh, that's key.
It's a permanent thing.
That's great.
I mean, semi-permanent thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you what the most stands for, and medical order for scope of treatment.
Okay.
That's a physician's order based upon a person's medical condition. So it's a doctor thing.
Okay, gotcha.
And if you get transferred from a hospital to a rehab center, it's the doctor's orders that go with you.
Gotcha.
That's what a most form is.
Okay, okay. Huh.
I knew if I looked deep enough I could find what MOST stands for.
So we talked that your staff, if somebody had a question about how to file this, I mean,
feel free to call.
They could call.
Feel free to email.
Okay. Yes.
We can ask those kinds of things, answer those kind of things.
Yeah.
But people somehow morph over into things that are more legal, and so that's where we have to draw the line when that happens.
But I think that's a key thing that you mentioned, that if someone is admitted, God forbid, over a weekend to a hospital, you're right. It's going to take early next week, and especially if they're out of town, could be 2 weeks before they even get the documents
Right.
you know, collected and there, and it could happen immediately.
Before we close out here, because I know we're running out of time, I want to dispel 2 myths.
Okay.
Number one, the first is that if you do a will, or a living will, that something's going to happen shortly.
Right.
That doesn't happen. I found some reluctance in my practice of law, and I know that people have just got to get over that hurdle.
Yep.
The other real myth out there is that when people say, oh, my family know my wishes, I always tell them, I say, now think about, what did you get the last several Christmases? Did they really know your wishes? If you got an oddball gift, then maybe they, and it wasn't a joke, maybe they really don't know your wishes.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's far better to have it down on paper and
be prepared.
That's right.
Be prepared. Again, not just for the sake of your sake, for state of mind and for less stress, but for your families.
For your families.
It makes a big difference.
This can hold families together, or it can drive them apart. And you know, sometimes, let me say, for some folks, if they're thinking maybe their parent or somebody they love needs one, a good time to bring up the topic is either when all the family's together at holidays, or let's say they go visit somebody at a care facility and they come out and they tell you, you know, I don't want to be kept like that.
Yeah.
Then that's an appropriate time for somebody to say, well, have you made sure that your wishes are known so that that doesn't happen?
Right.
That's a prime time to begin the conversation.
Should you also, once this is registered, turn to your physician and or doctor to let them be aware that it's registered
Absolutely.
on there? Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like this password here. Let everybody know.
Yeah.
Let everybody know you've done it. I do find that a lot of lawyers that do estate planning will do this. The people know that they're doing it, but then the lawyers will deposit it with us, and sometimes the people forget because they haven't actually done the deposit themselves.
Right.
So please, you know, you'll get one of these, the lawyer will give it to you, this is what it's all about. Your documents are deposited with us, and nosy people can't look at it unless they've got all this stuff, but nobody can change it. You can't change it online or anything. To change it, we send it back to you, and then you send the new version to us.
All falls under HIPAA. You can't get access unless it's the approval of the individual, or they have that password.
Or they have the password.
Or they have the password, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many do you get filings per?
Well, we have
year?
about, I can't tell you per year, we have about 40,000 of them. We're nudging up to 40,000 online. Well,
really?
For a state of 10 million people, and we've been doing it for more than 10 years, that's not a lot. We don't have any money to publicize this, so I'm eternally grateful for this opportunity here. I talk about it a little bit when I do civic club meetings and what have you, but I just love Aging with Attitude as a focus, and just so important. You've got an audience that's interested in this type activity, and so you know, it's so important. I'm very grateful for being here today.
Oh, it's critical. It's critical. What do you think, if people aren't sure the first step, just call your office or go through the website? That's probably the best.
Well, I'd go through the website, because if you, at 10 o'clock at night, there's not going to be anybody answering the phone or email.
They can do it off hours. It doesn't have to be right away.
Absolutely. It's the kind of thing I'd go look at, spend an hour looking at it, reading all the FAQs, and then if you have more questions, call up the next morning and we'll be happy to answer them for you.
Yes, yes. Now, can you explain the difference between, because we get these questions a lot, healthcare power of attorney and a regular power of attorney, which I know is not part of this, but oftentimes I get that question, the confusion that's out there.
Well, the healthcare power of attorney, like I say, it does have some specific questions that you do answer.
Right.
And it gives one person the authority to make those decisions for you. The regular power of attorney is much more comprehensive, and there are some entities, providers, that may not be willing to operate under a regular power of attorney, a broader power of attorney, because unless a lawyer has incorporated those healthcare magic sentences in there, and many don't, it is limited to leases and paying bills and, you know, where you're going to live and just all that kind of stuff, more business stuff, as opposed to personal health stuff.
So healthcare power of attorney turns and says, I want this individual to make decisions for me if I'm not capable of making those decisions on my own behalf?
It preliminarily says things like, I want life to be sustained no matter what, or I do not wish life to be sustained if I'm in a constant vegetative state and there's no reasonable opportunity for my recovery. I want food, or I don't, food and liquid, you know, that kind of stuff. Those are clearly set out in there that folks can elect which one they want. It's all voluntary. And then I appoint my person, whatever the name is.
So it goes hand in hand with the living will. There's a living will and that declaration of a healthcare power of attorney?
Right, right. They overlap. They overlap.
They overlap together. Okay, good. And living will is very important, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I see a lot of retirement centers saying, but you recommend against it. They'll actually, I know one retirement center in Charlotte that actually tells their people to put it in their advanced directives in a bag and put it in a freezer. Can you believe it? Because if there's a fire, they say, well, the chance of it, but there's no need if they can register it online.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the freezer.
And you were an attorney yourself, correct?
Oh yeah, still am, but just don't practice. I practice as Secretary of State. So, yeah.
Practice a lot.
Yeah, right.
Well, what other suggestions do you have that could help our viewers prepare for advanced directives moving forward?
Well, I think just doing the FAQs and doing a little research if it's possible online, you know, to do that. I will tell you that if senior centers have information, if they go to a church source, they may also get information that very deeply religious people feel under, I guess, best practices would happen, like forgiveness, those kinds of things that also are perhaps pre-death contemplation things, or
so check with your church.
There are things that we all ought to be thinking about in our life anyway.
Right.
So
later.
You know, but if you're not associated with that church, you know, you may be getting some advice that is from a particular doctrine that maybe you haven't subscribed to. I'm not trying. Those are all fine and good. Please know. But for some folks that may be off-putting.
Gotcha. So. Thank you. Well, again, I want to thank Elaine Marshall for another wonderful show explaining to us about advanced directives. My name is Phil Koch, guest of Aging with Attitude. Thank you for joining us this evening.